Hey, this is Ramon, channel is Alpha 4, and today I want to talk about, do androids dream of electric sheep? Or, as you probably know it, Blade Runner. Currently we are in a hectic time, a time of havoc, a time of riots and plague, a time of unrest. The government inside this book seems to be a collapsed U.S., where the world is run by three powers: the WPO, the Soviets, and the UN. I should first say that when it comes to the movie, I didn't like it. I've tried watching it multiple times. I found it boring and I found it unrelatable. That's not the case in the book. The book is very relatable, and it's definitely not boring. It's also very fast-paced. I should also talk about my history with Philip K. Dick. I've never really wanted to read him. Everyone who I've met who has read him, I should say, who loved his writings, I personally end up having some kind of problem with one of their foibles. Maybe they were a bit of a pothead, maybe they were a dropout. Interestingly, none of them were actually cyberpunk. They were not very tech savvy at all, actually. But they loved Philip K. Dick. And I have more than one Philip K. Dick book that was gifted to me that I immediately gave to a book drop-off, just to get rid of it. And now I'm actually a little sorry that I did so. Philip K. Dick's writing is amazing, but it is dated. That is true. There's going to be a lot of unintentional sexism and misogyny in the book. Philip K. Dick's view on women, at least as presented in this novel and the narration, doesn't seem very high. The book is kind of like a lucid dream, so there's no real transitions between certain key scenes. I know that later on in his novels he'll explicitly go into kind of a dreamscape. Here it's not as developed of a style, so you will sometimes have hard transitions, and then you'll have these weird jumbled transitions where the story so bleeds into itself that you're not really sure who's speaking or what's happening. You have to go back a page or two, or if you listen to an audiobook, you have to go back maybe a minute and really listen to who's now speaking, which is kind of unfortunate. That's kind of the downside. What's the upside? The book is highly intriguing, very interesting. You would think that it's going to be about race, considering that it's about a struggle between humans and androids. There's no allegory for race here. Actually, the allegory is about mental illness, possibly drug addiction as well. At one point, you actually doubt whether Decker is a human or an android, and you doubt if anything you're reading is real. In fact, several times in the book, the characters who you're told are going to lie and say exactly what they're going to say are convincing enough that you're like, well, maybe Decker is insane. He might not really be a cop. He might not really be a bounty hunter. He might just be a murdering psychopath who's degenerated into what they call a special. There is a plague, a dust. Some people in the past have seen it as radioactive dust, but you can see it as a disease or anything else. You have specials, which are people who are a little underdeveloped or a little different or a little mutated. You have androids, which are not really androids. They're designer humans who can't live longer than 4 years because their cells cannot regenerate. And you have normal earthlings. And you also have the devil in a TV program, in a TV talk show host that has immortal guests. And you have a Jesus allegory in a guy called Mercer, who's supposed to be the projected amalgamation of all consciousness, and it's a projection of that consciousness into a single form. But if you know anything about the critique against Christianity about the time the novel was written, it fits right in line with the critique of Christianity, Mercerism, which is that it's a rising God who stumbles and falls and dies and then comes back up. So anyone who's familiar with any modern atheism critiques against Christianity would have heard that, the rising and falling God, the rebirth, that kind of theme. So there is a Christ allegory. And at one point you think it's just an allegory until Mercer, who's now been debunked, shows up in a vision and saves two of the characters, I guess you could say. He saves Isidore, and he saves or rescues Decker, which is very interesting. I'm not sure what about religion that Philip K. Dick was trying to say, but he definitely had a message about religion at that point. So that just as the reviews that I watched, which like I said were 4 years and 7 years old, they seem to miss the misogyny. They also seem to miss the religious allegories. A lot of people put it into some kind of philosophy about I don't even know. A lot of reviewers had a hard time admitting that Mercerism is a religion. It's definitely a religious allegory in the story for Christianity. Anyway, the future that they're in doesn't have cell phones or anything like that. Still has newspapers, and he has to open up a book of Christie's to see the price of. He has to open up a little catalog to see the price of animals. A lot of people took it as being about empathy, but it's not so much about empathy as it is about loneliness, isolation, belonging, faith. Empathy plays a big part, but what the book is saying versus what the movie is saying is a little different. In the book, by the end of the story, Decker is basically an android. He's identified with God. He's become one with the universe, and then the universe gives him a middle finger. Because, I don't know, I thought it was kind of humorous that that's where they went. And even if you've seen the movie, and even if you're familiar with the broad outlines of the story from other media like comics, you're gonna be nervous that maybe Decker is an unreliable narrator. You're gonna be nervous that the androids are the good guys. And that's somewhere that this story does, something that the story does really well. It doesn't do the thing that we've been conditioned for stories like this to do. You remember, because this is pre-Cyberpunk, and we're in a post-Cyberpunk world where the themes of androids having humanity is something that we've developed to where, like, oh no, they should be respected too. You know, Detroit Beyond Human, for example. Here, no, androids are definitely a threat. They don't have any morals. But it is very easy for someone with Asperger's or someone with some type of mental condition or psychopathy or sociopathy to be identified as an android. And androids here are not machines. In fact, machine-animal hybrid cyborgs exist in this universe, and they're looked down upon. It's actually androids that are feared because they're so human. And that's another difference in the novel and the movie. In the movie, Rachel is likable, is relatable, is important. In the book, Rachel is hateable, contemptible. She's a horrible character, horrible person. And they are persons, and that's kind of where the book ends, is that once Decker realizes that they are living beings, he hates them even more. He doesn't hate them less. He's like, these people are scum. I would read this book. I found it very interesting. If you have a chance to read it or listen to it, go do so. I did have some questions because they changed the title from Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep to Blade Runner, and it says based on the original novel by Philip K. Dick. So I'm a little bit worried that maybe we're not getting the true version or the original version of that story, that it might have been influenced by the movie in later edits or later editions. I don't know. I hope this discussion wasn't too disjointed, but it's like 4 in the morning. Peace, like, and subscribe. Talk to y'all later.